All right, welcome back to Bullpen Sessions. I'm excited today to have Cam Marshall on. I got a chance to get to know Cam a little bit a few weeks ago, and Cam, I'm excited to have you, man. You've got quite a resume on your plate from your sports career, and so really, what I want to use this podcast to do for the audience is talk about your journey from, being a youngster up in the Bay Area to the NFL, and then how you're applying those lessons to life today. Sound good?
For sure, absolutely. And thank you for
Awesome.
having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh no, I'm excited, man. Like I said, didn't know, you and I never met before. We were in actually a virtual mastermind together, but virtual being the key word. And I think we had about 100 people in there. So you can't always make close connections, but I think our time in Park City a few weeks back was really, really cool. It was great to spend time with you. And I'll actually reference a couple of amazing athletic feats you had in Park City, if you don't mind, as we go through this.
Yeah, do your thing.
So Cam, let's just start right here, man. For the audience who doesn't know who the heck you are, where were you born?
Yep. So I'm originally from San Jose, California, born and raised out there. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna get right into it because your accolades from sports are pretty long. I can spend all my time sitting here reading this, but you played. We're going to talk about your career at Arizona State. You're the number 7 all-time leading rusher at ASU. Tied for the single season record of touchdowns, 18. Second all-time with 38 rushing touchdowns. And so you had a one hell of a career at Arizona State in the backfield. But let's actually go previous to that. Growing up in the Bay Area, you were more on the south end, right, towards San Jose.
Yep. South side of the Bay, huh?
When did you really realize football could be a thing for you?
So like early on, obviously, you had some success playing in, your little league sports, and my last year playing in Pop Warner, we had won the national championship, so that was kind of like an early test. But I'd say like when it was really like real for me was my first like football camp. So I went to Arizona State. They had like a football camp for like high school students. I don't even know if they still do this or not, but so basically our high school students from all around the country will come out, and you'll do a camp. So I had done a camp like that, and I had done another camp at another point in time of the year with same type of thing. High school kids from all around different areas, different states, different parts of California will fly and kind of just, they'll work you out. You'll do drills, you'll compete against people. And so for me, I realized I was like, okay, I'm actually pretty good. Like I always knew I was good, but I realized I was pretty good when I got to see myself against other kids from other areas, Texas and Southern California, and all these other different areas who are Florida, and these kids are good at sports, and you're like, or these these are pretty well-known states. So you come out there and you compete against those guys, and you're doing well against those guys. You're like, okay, like I'm not just like locally good. I'm actually like I'm good. So so that's probably like the first real time. So that's probably like my junior year of high school, like where I was able to really confirm it. I knew I was always good, but again, I was just really able to confirm it against different competition.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point. I grew up in Wisconsin, and as a high school athlete, it's hard to compare yourself locally sometimes because whereas you come from one of the best states in America when it comes to high school athletics. I mean, some of the competition in California, especially in the sport of football, there's only really 2 other states I think of that can compare, and that's Texas and Florida. And so you're sitting at a national camp competing against kids against Texas and Florida, and you're competing. That should have given you a pretty good indication that, yeah, I think I got what it takes to play at the next level.
Right.
Now, you had obviously a really successful high school career. I'm just curious, again, going back to early on in maybe Little League football or whatever, was there a reason you chose running back over any other position?
No. So I guess like my very first year of football, they put me at running back, but like I could never remember which way the holes were. Like, they have even numbers for the right, odd numbers for the left. So like for my very, we're talking 8 years old, I'm playing. So they're like, okay, 22. And then like, you're more to the left. So they put me at O-line for a day. And I was killing people at O-line. So they're like, okay, well, we need to go ahead and put him back at running back, and we'll just help him out with the stuff. I've since, gained some football knowledge and, understand the game a lot more than I did at 8. But But yeah, so running back, it was pretty natural for me. I mean, I was always a fast, athletic, stocky kid. So it was kind of natural, especially at that time period. Kids now the kids, they throw the ball around a lot, but when kids weren't really throwing the ball where I was playing. So all the athletic kids either played running back or, some quarterback or something on defense. So, running back just kind of where they put me.
I love that they actually moved you from the offensive line to running back, or back to running back to protect the other team because you were killing kids on the offensive line. I absolutely love that. And by the way, guys, I had a chance, as I mentioned, to hang out with Cam in Park City. We were skiing, fly fishing, having fun in an indoor air park. This dude has got tree trunks for legs, so I would not mess with this guy whatsoever. In fact, did I read you ran a 4.32 40?
That was a hand time, and I was coming out of high school. I was clocked at that. So my pro day wasn't a 4.3. I think officially on my pro day it was like a 4.51, but I think it was faster than that. But that's what they told me. So
that's up to the scouts, right?
Yeah, exactly. I ran enough 4.4s in training to know what one felt like, and I felt like every bit of a 4.4. But that's just what they got me at. So that's what I got to be held to.
Absolutely. Now, so I'm curious because, again, for the folks listening that don't know who you are, you also have a younger brother who's been extremely successful on the football field, both at the collegiate level, and he played in the NFL and is currently in the CFL. Just like very similar to the career trajectory that you took. Were your parents athletes? The gene pool going through the Marshall family has to be insane. Two boys who are running backs playing at major college. Your brother played at Oregon. You're at Arizona State. You both play in the NFL. Were your parents athletes?
They are, and yes, and I gotta give credit to the person who started everything with the kids. My older sister, she ran track at the University of Arizona, so
okay.
So she kind of got us all started off with going to sports on scholarship or going to college on scholarship. So but yes, my parents were, and actually my sister too. She was a top 10 hurdler in the nation coming out of high school. So or top 8 actually. So yeah, so a lot of talent between the three of us. But yes, both of my parents were athletes. My dad played basketball and ran track, and my mom same thing, basketball and track. So yeah, the football just kind of came. I know my dad wanted both me and my brother to play basketball, but football just kind of came a little bit more naturally to us. I think my brother likes basketball better, even still to this day. But neither one of us are 6 foot, so football it is.
You bring up, and we're going to get to your Arizona State career here in a second, but I want to ask a question about a point you just made that I think is important for people to understand. Because you had a chance to play at the major Division I level, you got a chance to play at the NFL level. Did you see a lot of guys who, let's face it, maybe didn't like the sport all that much, but because they were just so damn talented at it and had a chance to make, let's face it, in some cases, generational wealth, they just kept playing?
Oh yeah, I mean, you see a lot of guys, in the locker room, like, man, I really wish I would have played basketball. Every football player wants to play basketball, so so you get a lot of that. But I mean, you guys are just good at what they're good at. Some guys, everyone we all talk to now, like, or when we be in the locker room, like, man, I wish I would have played baseball. Cause we're looking at baseball contracts, and these guys are getting 10-year contracts for $1 billion, and you're like, man, I wish. And they're like, okay, their body looks like it's way fresher than ours. They're playing to their mid-30s, late 30s, 40s. Like, so we wish we would have played baseball, or basketball, something like that. But it's all good. It's fun.
Well, and you bring up another great point that I think NFL athletes, because with as much as you guys get beat up, the pay is definitely probably not at the same level as other sports for sure. So you had a chance. Here you are, a top running back, not only in California, but in the country as a senior in high school. Probably had a lot of scholarship offers. Why Arizona State?
It was really simple for me. I mean, they really just invested in me a lot, and they showed me that they really were committed to me and committed to my growth there as a student athlete. So and I took a visit to Oregon. I turned them down. Took a visit to Utah. They weren't in the Pac-12 at the time. I say I'm old, so I was in the Pac-10 for the first 2 years, and then Pac-12 my last two. So they weren't there, and it's kind of not the level I really wanted to play with. And surprisingly, Northwestern was my second choice. Again, it was all the feel. It was less about the big school for me. I mean, obviously, like if I wanted to go to a big school, I'd have went to Oregon. But less about a big school for me and more about like my team's commitment to me and like where they invested in me. And so I really felt Arizona State was invested in me. And so I'm glad I went here.
You weren't lured in by the different uniforms every game up in what was going on up in Eugene.
I mean, don't get me wrong. That was hard to like look past, and that's like all the Nike, and I love Nike. So I'm looking at all that stuff, and I'm like, at the end of the day, it's like I felt like if I go to school and do what I want to do and accomplish things I want to accomplish, like at some point I could probably buy all the Nike that I want to buy anyway. So
bingo, and I think that's an important message, Cam, because I see it in every sport. And kids coming out of high school going to that have these opportunities to go. In some cases, you can go sit at a Division I school, or you can go down to maybe a mid-major Division I or even a Division II and play from day one. I see so many kids who choose the spotlight, but they end up sitting for 4 years. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why I would have chosen to go down a notch where I would have been able to play every day. And again, what we've seen in college, especially football and baseball, maybe more than basketball, is even at a lower level, you still have a chance to play at the next level if the talent is there.
Absolutely. And I think it was good too, because I mean, like at ASU, I felt like I had an opportunity to compete when we were a top 25 school when I was being recruited. And so I was like, not only are they invested in me, but they do have a chance to compete as well. So I think both of those things are important. But like you're saying, like it doesn't make sense to go sit at a Alabama or at a USC, or I mean USC when back when they had Reggie Bush and all those guys when they're stacked. It makes no sense to go sit at a school like that, Oregon, for example, when you can, go to someplace else and actually have an opportunity to play. And like you said, you can still achieve your goals of going, to whatever school that you want to go to.
Well, and the point I want to make is you didn't take a step down. You ended up at ASU, also in the Pac-10. When you got there, I'm curious because, you come out of high school, and I always use the phrase, the hometown heroes, right? Like you can stand out. You were the standout, the number one player in your team, probably in your area. But now you're in the Pac-10, and now you're on a team of guys who were all in that position coming out of high school. What would you say was the biggest difference, standing in a backfield in the Pac-10 versus a backfield in Northern California, in a Northern California high school game? What were some of the differences you noticed pretty early on?
The size, people. you got some grown men on the other side. You're not just like the biggest person or like the most athletic person on the field anymore. So the size of the guys for sure. And just like you got some dogs that you're going against now, like across the board. It's not just like, okay, the other team maybe has like 2-3 dogs or whatever. Like it's like, okay, there's 11 dogs on the other side that have been competing and all that kind of stuff. So that's probably the biggest difference. And the speed of the game. The speed of the game was like adjusting to. I'd say like the speed from like going from like your freshman year to varsity is probably bigger than it is from like varsity to like college. Kind of, I don't know. It's like a weird, but speed of the game is like it gets faster. So you start seeing like guys fly around in practice and things like that. You're like, man, everything's flying. But it slows down like once you like start getting into everything. But
well, and that's a question I wanted to ask you, because I think everybody hits that point in their college career. This is a good thing for high school athletes to hear. When you get to that next level, everything is so fast. You've got linebackers running sideline to sideline at a speed you haven't seen before. And like you said, it's not one guy on the defense that's all-state. Like this is now a lineup of former all-state players. When did you hit that moment where things started slowing down for you? Was it your end of your freshman year, sophomore year? Where did it really say, okay, I'm here, the speed's slowing down, it's easier to read the holes now, and I feel like I belong, I'm here, I'm ready to actually succeed in the Pac-10?
Mm-hmm. I'd say in my freshman year. I mean, I think like after training camp or after the first couple of games, like you get a feel for stuff. I mean, obviously, like I played as a true freshman. Didn't start as a true freshman. I started one game as a true freshman. And so you get things, but like the next years, like the more and more you play, the more and more you get it. So the more reps you get. But I mean, I'd say like in terms of me feeling like okay, I can do this. I feel pretty good. Coming out of camp my freshman year, I'm like okay, like I should be playing. Like I get it. It makes sense at least at that level. I get it to a certain point. I understand my assignment. I understand what I need to do. I know I know how to hit the hole and do that kind of stuff. So um, it's like that's when I started to click for me. Now I just got better and better from there. But that's when it really started clicking for me coming out of camp my freshman year.
Were there any guys early on in your college career, like you said, you got playing time as a true freshman? Were there any guys, as you get called, you come in the game, you're in the backfield, you're scoping the defense, and you're like, oh shit, there's so and so standing at middle linebacker. Was there anybody you faced early on in your college career, like, damn, I'm going up against him now?
I mean, not necessarily from that perspective, but like at least from the standpoint of like I recognize that person's name or like you've seen that person before, things like that. So I mean, obviously, like I went to school with Vontez Burfict too. So like Tez is over there on the other side. And that's practice. So I mean, you see him every day. Um, so it's just things like that. I mean, at the end of the day, like as a competitor, you're not like, at least that's how I felt. Like as a competitor, I was never like, man, like there's so and so over there. It was just like, all right, like I noticed them obviously because name recognition and things like that. Um, but it wasn't like you're not just like, dang, I don't want to tackle him, I don't want to hit him because then if that's the case, it's like you lost already. So
Yeah.
it was never really like that for me.
Well, let's talk about this because, you had obviously, I read the stats earlier. You had a very successful career at ASU, number 7 all-time leading rusher, tied for the single season record for touchdowns. What do I have? Second all-time with 38 rushing touchdowns. So you had an amazing career there. But what most people don't realize when it comes to college athletes is all the work you put in off the field. Give people a sense for like what it was like to be a Division I athlete, a college football player. What was your typical day like? Not just in the classroom, but all the work you had to put in on a daily basis to be successful on Saturdays.
Yeah, so I mean, it obviously depends on the time of the year. I'm sure, like for you with baseball, like just sometimes like during the season is different schedule than off season. But in an off season schedule, you would work out in the morning, so like 6 a.m. workouts or so, and then you go into class and you're coming back to do some type of either study hall or if it's during the spring, then you're coming back to do spring practice, and so it's early morning workouts. Then my senior year, we switched to practicing in the morning. So like we used to go to get up and like be there at like 5:30. You got to do your treatment and stuff beforehand. Then you go to meetings, and you go to practice, and you go to class, and then you come back and maybe you got to go to study hall or tutoring if you have tutoring. Or film review. So it's a full day. You're up early and you're doing stuff all day, and then you maybe go home and take a nap and come back to the facility and do some stuff, or take a nap in the locker room. That's probably the best. I got probably some of the best naps I ever had in my life in that locker room. So taking that little break between hand, crashing for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and getting back up and going to do something else. So between film and like make sure you're putting the right things in your body as best as possible. I mean, you're still 19-year-old kid, so I'm sure all my decisions weren't great, but yeah, I mean it's long days.
Yeah, I think to me, what separates the athletes, men or women, that come into college sports, the ones who give themselves the best chance to play at then the next level, which is pro sports, and those that fizzle out, is how well they're able to manage that time. Because I think between college and high school, you get a lot more free time.
Right.
A lot of it's curated, like you just mentioned, where you had to be here, then here, then here, then here. But it's that ability to manage that time and show up every day. I'm curious, I look back at your ASU career. If you were to break it down into 2 or 3 things that allowed you, and we'll get to this in a second, to play at the next level. What would those things be, Cam? If I said, Cam, why did you get the chance to play at the NFL level? What would you say the 2 or 3 things are?
Consistency. So for like showing up, being where you're supposed to be, doing what you're supposed to do. So one, I think that's a tough part for guys, just like that, like showing up the right way. I think that's the tough part for people. I've seen some drop off with guys doing that. So like not being able to be counted on. So I'd say consistency was one. Obviously talent is another one. But I think that hard work too. Just really like knowing that, hey, this is what I really want to do. This is a goal of mine, and I'm willing to like put in the work. I'm willing to, if I'm injured, like I played in every college game that I had. Like I never missed a game for injury. And I've been beat up my junior year, especially. My body was beat up horribly, but it's just like consistency, showing up to treatment, working hard and practice, with whatever I could do. I was injured, I was hurt, I was uncomfortable, but just fighting through all that stuff. So really just showing up and working hard and then knowing, the last part is like really knowing what you're supposed to do and understanding what you're supposed to do. So putting in the mental aspect. So there's a lot of guys who can play physically, but like they're never in the right spot. So then the coach is like, I can't put you, in the game if you're not going to be in the right spot. But very talented, but it's just if you don't know how to move with the talent, then you're not really gonna play very much.
I think it's an accumulating effect. The word I was looking for you to say, and you said it, was consistency.
Yeah.
One, doing all the little things off the field, those drills, those mechanics that it seems so mundane and so boring in the moment. But to your point, talent's one thing, but if you can't do the little things right, you're not going to get on the field. Right. And so, now let's quickly just talk about your NFL career, because you spent time, with the Dolphins, Seahawks, Jaguars, and then you spent some time in the CFL as well. I've got a couple questions for you. I'd asked you the question from, California high school football to the Pac-10, now the Pac-10 and Pac-12 by the time you left, Pac-12 to the NFL. You're now standing in an NFL backfield.
Yeah.
What is that jump like from the college to the NFL?
Even faster. So, so like you're saying, like the funnel gets a little bit smaller as you get higher. So you got, your high school to college, everyone was the best. Everyone on that college team was the best on their high school team, and or among the best on the high school team. And then all those guys in the college team, when you go to the NFL, like all those guys were like among the best on their college team. So now you're in the NFL playing with, an even smaller funnel. So it's even faster, it's even more physical, it's even more mental. Everything's elevated. So it's really like an eye-opening moment, especially me coming in there. So I went in there as an undrafted free agent. My senior year, we had a coaching change. So my senior year wasn't as successful as my junior year. And just, a lot of factors that went along with that. So I ended up going undrafted. So that's already an uphill battle, as is. There's a small percentage of guys who make the roster being undrafted. And so you're just kind of going in there, you're just like, man, I just got to like compete. Like everything's compete, like from like going to meetings and like showing up to like the way you take notes, the way you like know your assignment. Like there's a lot less room for error when you go in there as a rookie and when you're undrafted, because they're just like, we'll cut you and we'll bring somebody else in. Like, so there's always like that little fear in the back of your mind. Like in college, okay, hey, I'm on scholarship. It's going to take a lot for me to lose my scholarship. In the NFL, it's like, it doesn't take that much for you to lose your job. And this is your job at this point too. It's not really just like, school. It's like, hey, this is how I'm supposed to make money for, the next however long. So,
yep. And the stakes are even higher when the pay is
right.
higher, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. You brought up something too that I think is can't go overlooked. You had a really successful junior season. Then you had a coaching change, which I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, you probably had an offensive mindset, offensive philosophy change. Was there that feeling that maybe you weren't as good of a fit in the offense your senior year as maybe you were your junior?
I think that new coaches came in. So I did have an injury in that training camp
Okay.
leading up to the season, so a little hamstring. So it wasn't anything that was crazy, but I just think there was a combination of things. It wasn't one thing, but it was a combination of like them wanting to do things their way with some of the guys that they wanted, and I love MG was in my backfield, Marion Grice and DJ Foster. I think those are really talented players. And so I think that, I was having to share a backfield my senior year versus like having to getting to kind of run the backfield my junior year. So I think that philosophy change wasn't beneficial to me. It was good for those guys, but and I love those guys. So it wasn't like they were. I was like, okay, these guys aren't talented. These guys can't play. MG got drafted. He played with the Cardinals, and who else did he play for? I remember he played with the Cardinals. I know DJ's with the Cardinals right now. I'm pretty sure. So, talented guys. It wasn't like I'm sharing the backfield with guys who weren't deserving and things like that. But I think that's difficult to go from like being the only guy, or not the only guy. I'm sharing the backfield a little bit versus sharing it with two other guys. So I mean, you see the production didn't necessarily go down, but the attempts went down. So.
Well, and I only asked that question because I think you see it a lot, maybe at the NFL level. A team drafts a guy, and whether it's a defense, let's say it's a defensive player, and they have a system that maybe isn't the best fit for that player. His talent can actually appear to go down because he just might be in the wrong system. For his skill set. And that's why I asked the question, because you see that a lot in the NFL where a team drafts a guy and he's just, if it's not the right fit, for some guys, that can be the difference between a mediocre career and a Hall of Fame career.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for me, I'd probably say a combination now, like I said, right fit and like right philosophy. For sure. So those things were probably made it a little tougher for me in my senior year.
I love your thoughts on this, because I laugh when people, go back to 2, 3, 4 years ago when, the Browns were heading towards 0-16 and those 1-15 years. And you'd hear people say, oh, the Alabama and Clemson could kill Cleveland. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You take the worst team in the NFL and it wouldn't be close. What are your thoughts on that? A man who has seen both levels.
It wouldn't even be close. Yeah. I mean, Bama, they've got some great teams, and obviously, Clemson, same thing, great teams, great players. But you're not seeing 22 guys from those Bama teams and Clemson teams going to the next level to play. You know what I mean? Like, all those guys have been picked off of their team to go play at the next level. And it's hard to win games up there. I mean, even when you see good teams, like, you see good players on good teams talk about how hard it is to win games week in and week out. It's not a cakewalk for anybody, even if it looks like that. It's hard to win games at that level.
So the last question I want to ask you before we move on to, let's call it chapter 2 of your life. You also finished your career in the CFL. And for those that are not familiar, it's a different style of football, right? It's a longer field, bigger end zones. It seems to be more of a passing game because the receivers get a head start. It's if you haven't watched it and watch it for the first time, you'd be like, what the hell's going on? As a running back, what was that like for you? Was that a big shift in how the game was played?
Yes and no. So yes, because now there's also an extra defender on the field. The field is wider, and so like you said, longer field, longer end zone. So and there's 3 downs instead of 4. So as a running back, you can run for, like, if I get a 3-yard gain on first down and second down, now we're third and 6, or what is that? 3rd and 4, excuse me, bad math. So we're 3rd and 4. That's like 3rd and medium. Like you're good to, like, that's like you can pretty much do everything in your playbook at 3rd and medium. You can pass, deep pass, short pass, run the ball, whatever you kind of see fit. In Canada, it's like if I have a 3-yard gain on first down, now we're basically like 2nd and long, but you only get 3 downs, so that's like a passing down now. That's definitely a passing down versus it being like your playbook being opened a little bit more. So you gotta kind of your first down's got to count a little bit more. So you're gonna get the ball less times running the ball wise, but you may get it you may touch the ball just in the passing game a little bit more. So definitely some differences there. A lot of running around, a lot of motions. Motions can get kind of crazy, like you said. If you just try on a CFL game, which I would recommend, it's a very entertaining game. It's not too much different, so that you still could track, but it's very entertaining. But it is different. So
well, it's you know, I didn't realize they have a 12th defender.
yeah, there's 12.
Wow,
12 people
I didn't realize that. Do you have 12 guys on offense too?
Yeah, 12 guys on both sides of the ball.
You know, I remember probably I was in middle school when we got cable, you know, back in the early 90s, and that they had CFL games, and that was back when Doug Flutie was just dropping bombs all over the CFL. So I remember watching that for the first time, and you're just like, what is this? Like, these receivers are standing 5 to 10 yards back, getting these running starts, and yeah, it's definitely a sport of timing. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, definitely out of time, man.
Your football career ended a couple years ago. So let's talk about what you're doing now. What are you up to these days?
Yeah, so entrepreneurship has been a huge. It's what I've like trying to taking my steps in, and it's been humbling. I mean, to go from doing something for, you know, really, I say 20 years, just because the way I approach football, even at a young age. I mean, I've always treated this like a job and a career. So I mean, I've missed out on. I shouldn't say missed out. I've chosen to do my sports and taking that with a different level of like seriousness than I think some people have. So like throughout like high school, throughout middle school, where I'm like having to like run before games, like lose weight and make sure like, you know, your weigh-ins are all good, and, you know, to like waking up in the morning and doing push-ups and sit-ups and all that kind of stuff every day before school. So you do that to high school, and you lift in the mornings. You're not going on Christmas vacation and summer vacation because you're playing your sports. I'm running track or whatever. To college, to doing all the things that, you know, you're doing in college. So you're doing this stuff for 20 years, and then you're kind of all right. Now I got to try my hand at something that's like completely new. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you had a ton of. I've had jobs and things like that I've worked and had experience doing stuff, you know, between seasons and or at periods where I haven't been signed or things like that. But I mean, it's a different beast to go from doing something that you know for very long to like doing something that you're really trying to figure out. So
well, and I know you're dabbling, you're using your entrepreneurial spirit to dabble into the real estate industry. And I think what you said is so true, because as an athlete, this is how I felt when I dipped my toe into the entrepreneurial world. Trust me, Cam, I did it a lot later in life than you did. In sports, when you're failing, oftentimes it's just going and doing more of the physical things, right? Hit the weight room, work on the mechanics, yada, yada, yada. Whereas in entrepreneurship, I think a lot of the failure really challenges you between the ears, right? The mental side of like, okay, this isn't working. Try this. Okay, this isn't work. Would you agree with that? That it's actually, in some cases, harder to overcome failure as it is that I just fumbled on the 10-yard line with a chance to go ahead with the go-ahead score.
Yeah, so I would definitely agree with that, especially from the standpoint of like what you're saying, like failures in entrepreneurship. Like, if I fumble on the 10-yard line going with the go-ahead score, which actually I've done before,
and I didn't know that. Sorry to cut you off.
A little sore spot. I did that. It was actually inside the 5 playing Oregon. Anyways, we don't need to bring that up. But if you do that, you know exactly what it is that you need to change or to fix in order to like for that not to happen again. So I know, okay, hey, I need to squeeze the ball when I'm going to. I need 2 hands on the ball, whatever, going to the hole, or any number of things. Like, I know exactly what it is. I can work on that. Like you said, the physical stuff, the entrepreneur stuff. Like, okay, I failed here. There's so many different variables, and there's not even like the structure in most cases when you're starting off. There's not even like the structure that there is like when you're playing your sport. So like improving within a structure versus like creating a structure and then like having to figure out where you need to improve at those are 2 very different things. I think that's like where the big gaps are. So I think that's harder in a lot of respects than it is to like improve within a certain structure.
Well, and let's face it, you played football, I played baseball. If you fail, I remember plenty of games where I failed on the mound. Tomorrow's a new day. You got to practice. You're with your team. It's a team effort. So yes, maybe you
Mm-hmm.
failed and didn't do your job, but it doesn't mean you were the only one who cost your team the game. Entrepreneurship is lonely, right?
Yeah.
When you fail alone.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing that's hard for a lot of people to understand and digest is like, you know, there's no practice tomorrow. So you've got to
Yeah.
get your ass up tomorrow, even though yesterday sucked.
Right.
You lost a big account. You lost a client, whatever it is, and you got to get back at it.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to what made you so good at ASU was consistency.
Right.
So, you know, and for those that don't know, your wife, Aisha, I apologize. Her business, what's the name of her business?
Creative Label.
Creative Logo. I mean, you've got a good mentor. She is absolutely crushing it. And so, you know, when we think of coaches and mentors, you got one living in your own house, which is a nice asset to have. Let's talk about this, Cam. I'm going to go off subject here before we wrap up the episode. So you and I got a chance to hang out. We had really never met, but we got a chance to hang out in Park City a few weeks back at Kyle Depier's Reaching Beyond experience. And what I loved, in fact, for people who don't know, every time we do this, we vote for the kind of the MVP of the experience. You got MVP.
Yes.
The person who played most all out, which is what I love. And so tell me a little bit about that, because what we did is we did three things, right? We skied, we fly fished, and then we got a chance for 90 minutes to go act like kids inside an indoor air park at the base of one of the mountains. Now, coming into those 2 days, you had done none of it before in your life.
Yeah.
What was that experience like, dipping, you know, trying things like that out for the first time?
Honestly, it was tough. Like the snowboarding was probably the toughest. I mean, physically, like, I mean, I was getting thrashed on that mountain. So so physically, like hitting the ground, getting back up, hitting the ground, getting back up, like that's tough on the body. Like it's frustrating, and you're just like, I feel like I should be better at this, because it's like you're just doing something athletic, and but like never snowboarding for 29 years, and then having all of a sudden going snowboarding, and you're like trying to figure it out. So yeah, I mean, it's like doing that, and then like same thing going fishing, like frustrating, because I'm hearing you and the other guys, oh, caught another one. I'm like throwing my line back in there, like, okay, like I haven't caught anything yet, and because like, as athletes we're competitive, so like you want to compete, like, and you want to like win, and that's just like in your nature. That's what you want to do. So it doesn't change just because you're doing something that you haven't done before. And so, but there's a lot of lessons. I mean, we can go on all day about that stuff, which we don't necessarily have to. But like, there's a lot of lessons that I was able to learn within those things, like kind of what was going on in my head mentally versus what I was physically doing. Was matching a lot of times. So it was good to kind of like see like what was going on in my head to actually like be happening to my physical body, and then to understand that lesson in those ways, which was super helpful.
Well, folks, the ones listening in that weren't there, which is almost all of you. I mean, you talk about getting outside your comfort zone. When we showed up at the river to go fly fishing, it was cold.
It was cold.
And, you live in Arizona, so you're used to the warmth all year. I'm in Colorado, so you get both. But damn, standing in that water, man, holy shit.
Yeah,
I don't know about you. There was a moment I'm like, I'm out. That shuttle is warm as hell. I'm going in it.
No, I mean, that's how I was feeling too when I wasn't catching any fish. And I'm like, I'm standing here freezing over here. And, I'm not catching any fish, and everyone else is catching fish. And, you get frustrated, but then you got to like, lock in and relax and figure out and all that stuff. But yeah, there was a moment for sure. I was almost out. I'm like, man, I'm over here standing in this cold water, freezing my butt off, not catching no fish. I'm out. But, stuck with it. I'm glad I did. I caught 2 that day.
I think there was a really important lesson because, and again, you redeemed yourself hugely by going into the indoor park because you were more in your element. Folks, we did it, had a little contest. If you've ever seen one of these indoor air parks, you've got the trampolines, the foam pits, and we started having a long jump competition, I believe is the best way to look at it. Cam, dude, you almost freaking long jumped beyond the pit. You hit the wall. It was like we were watching. You guys, I wish anybody listening in could have witnessed this. Cam takes off, goes off the jump, damn near clears the foam pit. Imagine somebody doing this long jump with these tree trunks. From that moment on, you were every kid's hero in that building. It was just actually astonishing to watch you do it, and then fun to watch all these kids like, whoa. So let's wrap this up, Cam. I got a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Because I think this goes back to stepping outside your comfort zone. I think, and we talked about, whether you were on the football field, now in your entrepreneurial ventures, getting uncomfortable is something we have to do every day, and stepping into a whole new career post football. It's a big step for a lot of athletes, especially. So 2 pieces of advice I'd love you to give for that high school athlete, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, who's looking to play at the next level and maybe looking to play at a high level. What piece of advice would you give him or her right now?
Be consistent and work. I mean, it's not the time to sit back and be like, oh, I'm good, or to sit back and if this is something that you really want, you got to invest. And so you got to invest your time, your energy, your effort. And so, I mean, that may mean you don't get to, you don't get to go on all the vacations. You don't get to go on all the, summer stuff. Maybe you got to sit back and work, and you got to come up with a plan. And it's like, okay, hey, if my feet are slow, I gotta really work on foot quickness. And what do I need to do to work on foot quickness? And who do I need to get with? And all that kind of stuff. 'Cause especially at that age, everyone wants to help somebody young like that. So there's a lot of resources you probably can get tapped into, and everyone knows somebody. So really, you got to invest the time and the energy, because this doesn't happen overnight. It's not like how you see on social media, or it's not like, okay, you can do one workout and that's it. Like, you got to do that stuff day in and day out. I can't tell you how many 8 to 10 hour days I had between working out and lifting and then doing my actual team's football practice in high school, and then doing that the summer after summer after summer, and each year picking a different thing that I needed to work on. So like, you really gotta, if this is something that you really want to do, invest the time in doing it. I'm not saying like you can't go to prom, or you can't have any fun, but just know that like there's always a trade-off. So
that's awesome, man. What about a pro athlete now? Career's winding down. They're retired, but they're still only 28, 29 years old. You've now made that adjustment. What advice would you give that pro athlete, male or female?
I would say, like, before you retire, if you're in the financial position and all that kind of stuff, just get curious. Like, there's so many resources within these leagues, oftentimes that go unused. Connections and internships and outreach and things like that. So use your resources to get in touch with people that you're interested in, and start doing stuff that like interests you. I tell my brother this all the time. I'm like, man, just whatever you're interested in, like, even if it's just something little, like if you're just like spend 5, 10, 15, whatever minutes a day, just looking at something that you're interested in, researching something that you're interested in, and just like, and see like where it takes you. And so just get curious, and really just be out there while you have the opportunity and like the stability. And if you're in a position where you don't necessarily have all that stuff, you got to figure it out quicker. Then that process just speeds up. But just get curious.
That's great advice. Be curious. I think that goes for anybody. All right, we're going to wrap it up. We're going to go around the bases here. I got 4 questions for you. You ready? Rapid fire. Right. Quickest answer you can give me. College at ASU. Best team you ever played against?
Ooh, probably Oregon.
Yeah, you were there right at the height of their dominance. Let's go even more narrow now. Best defensive player in college you ever played against?
JJ Watt.
JJ, I'm a Wisconsin fan. Did Arizona State play Wisconsin?
We did. We lost 20-17. Blocked field goal.
Oh, I don't remember that game.
Or missed field goal. Yeah, 2010.
Okay, I don't remember that game. Yeah, I'm a Badger fan, so that one speaks to my heart. Third, okay.
Yeah.
Greatest NFL running back you got the chance to watch?
Adrian Peterson.
Oh, that guy. You talk about a machine. Wow.
Yeah.
Last question. 40-yard sprint. Got to win the game. Who's winning? Byron or Cam?
Oh, me, 100%.
Well, Cam, if anybody, thank you for being on today. This was a fun episode. I appreciate you taking the time. If anybody wants to learn more about you, reach out to you, get in contact with you, what are the easiest ways to do that?
Instagram is probably I'm on Instagram the most. I'm on so Cam_Marshall. is my Instagram name, and then I'm on Twitter too. I don't really tweet very much, but I'm on Twitter. So if you ever do reach out to me via Twitter, I'll respond. But I don't really tweet. But Cam_Marshall32 is my Twitter. So
awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
that's probably the best ways.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, Cam. This was fun. If you're listening in, I hope you took a lot of notes from Cam. This guy excelled on the football field at an extremely high level. In fact, at the highest level you can attain. And now he's attempting to do the same in the entrepreneurial world. So Cam, thank you. And for those listening in, you know what happens when you get that clarity, you get that confidence, and they come together, massive action happens. Go make it happen today.
Thank you.